Oshale here, and RibSat, or the Read Your Bookshelf-a-thon, was last week, and I'm here with my wrap-up and to tell you about all the books I read last week, and let's get started. So I do have a day 3 update if you want to go watch that. That kind of gives you a little insight in what was going on 3 days into the readathon. I will link that in this video right now. And I also, of course, have my original video where I show you my TBR and kind of my plans, because I did RibSat a little bit differently than other people. Now, this readathon is to kind of pick a place in your bookshelf, start there, and read straight through. Kind of like you read the books in order once you pick a place to start. I did things a little bit differently. I had a lot of books I was already currently reading, so I wanted to kind of continue with that. Then there was my May of Adichie read-along, which I'm doing on my channel throughout the month of May, and I was really struggling with that. I'm still struggling with it, but I wanted to continue, so that also factored into my readathon plans. And then I also just kind of picked a spot in my bookshelf, and I picked 3 books that I was going to try and read in order. And, you know, I incorporated that too. So it was kind of a hodgepodge and a mishmash of just all these different goals that I wanted to accomplish with this readathon, and as always, things didn't exactly go according to plan. The first book I read was actually according to the readathon rules, and that was to pick a spot in your bookshelf, and I picked the spot that had this book, The Sky is Everywhere by Jandy Nelson, and I really enjoyed this. I gave this 5 stars. It made me laugh, it made me cry, it touched me. It was such a beautiful, beautiful book. I highly recommend this to everybody. This is a young adult contemporary dealing with loss and grief and first love, and it's a coming of age story. It's just so beautiful. We have a sister who's lost her older sister and best friend, and she's just trying to get through it. You know, she's trying to grieve for her sister, but she's also trying to move on with life. Then she's dealing with a lot of complicated emotions towards her dead sister's boyfriend, and then a new boy that moves into town. So she has a lot going on. You know, then there's her family's also grieving, and her mother has been missing from her life since she was very young. So she's also dealing with that loss. It's just beautifully written, and each page was a delight. I did not want this book to end. When I read the last page, I felt so sad that it was over. I just wanted it to keep going, and there aren't a lot of books that I feel that way about. I would definitely be rereading this, and this book has really made Jandy Nelson one of my favorite young adult authors. I will be reading everything she's written from now on. I do also have her second book, I'll Give You the Sun, and I definitely want to read that soon. I just kind of want to let this book sink in and just let it settle. I want to savor this read, and I really loved it. I cannot recommend this enough. 5 stars. After I read that, I picked up Sophie Kinsella's I've Got Your Number, and this book nearly put me in a reading slump. It was just not my favorite. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, but I think I'm actually going to change it to 2.5 stars. I actually have a whole video that was inspired by me reading this, and I will link that video either on this book or somewhere in the video right now, and that video is entitled Whiny and Insecure Female Protagonists, and that is pretty much this book in a nutshell. The main character, Poppy Wyatt, was just so insecure to the point of hopelessness almost. I just found it really difficult to read from her point of view. She frustrated me to no end, and I just really hated how it was kind of that book where it's like the man saves the day. You know, she meets this guy and he's got it so together, and she of course doesn't in comparison to him. And he's the one who shows her what an amazing person she is and how she needs to stand up for herself and be more assertive and not care so much what people think. And he kind of puts a mirror up to her face and shows her who she really is, and he saves her in a way. And I really hated that, because I don't like that message in books. I really don't, you guys. And don't get me wrong, I firmly believe that a relationship can bring out the best in you, and a person can really show you who you are and encourage you to be your best self. But I don't like it when that is it, you know, and when it's not coming from you and you're not wanting to change and you're not working on yourself, it's just you believing in this person's vision of you and you seeing yourself through this person's eyes only. You have to work on yourself. Like, ladies, you know this is true. We have to work on ourselves. And men too. Like, you can't just depend on how your significant other views you in order for you to get confidence and self-assurance. You yourself have to want to build up yourself and work on yourself and become a better person. So that really frustrated me. And I just don't like that whole savior thing where the guy saves the girl or vice versa, or, you know, the girl saves the guy in books. I don't like it. I think it is a false message. I don't think it's real. And I think it builds up unrealistic expectations for people who really look to books to mirror their lives, which you shouldn't, especially if it's fiction, you know. And that's why I really struggle with the whole chick lit genre. With the exception of one author, with the exception of Marian Keyes, I found many other chick lit authors to just write drivel. I mean, I don't want to be harsh, but that's just that's my personal opinion. And they just write books that I just cannot agree with. And when I'm reading these books, I really wonder, as a 20-something-year-old, is this really what we should expect? Is this how we think that we should be viewing ourselves? At 20-something years old, shouldn't we as women and men be striving for better, be striving to know ourselves a lot more and to be a lot more confident by that age? You know, I could go on and rant about this novel, but it just wasn't my cup of tea at all. And I will not be reading any more Sophie Kinsella books. I didn't find it funny, I didn't find it humorous, I found it pathetic and sad. And I just really wanted the heroine to have a wellspring of strength from within herself, and not from this man that she met. And the last couple chapters infuriated me to no end. And if you don't want any spoilers, then please just mute me until I say otherwise. But she basically almost goes through with the wedding to a person she does not love for the most paltry and just... The reasons that she almost marries someone she doesn't even love is astonishing. She has no backbone. She literally makes it all the way to the altar until something comes to light, some revelation comes to light that makes her realize, oh my gosh, I don't love this person. Even though she already made that realization about halfway through the book. It blows my mind that we are shown a female protagonist that doesn't have a mind of her own. You know, she just goes with the wind, and she cannot stand on her own 2 feet and make a decision to save her life. She comes to realizations and she has revelations about her life, but she doesn't follow through with it, which it amazes me. And the fact that she felt that somebody could make her marry them is mind-blowing. Nobody can make you marry anyone. You have to make a decision, and you have to stick to your guns, and you have to actually act on what you found out about yourself and about the other person instead of just marrying them anyway. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then for her to finally realize that she made the right decision at the last minute by not marrying him is when the other love interest all of a sudden proves to her that he does love her and he is there for her. So she basically goes from one relationship straight into the next. No space, no bridge, to the point where she invites her new love interest to her failed wedding reception. And she's kissing him at the end of the novel outside of the steps of the church where she almost married the guy that she wasn't supposed to marry in the first place. And the whole, the guests, everyone that was invited to the wedding is looking on, including her groom who she just jilted or, she just broke it off with at the altar. And then she invites the new guy to her wedding reception, even though there was no wedding. I hate this book. I don't like this. Oh my God. Then after I read that, I just needed something good. So I finally finished Purple Hibiscus by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which is book 1 in my Adichie read-along. My Adichie read-along has not been very successful, and I will make a whole another video and wrap up about that. So I don't want to go into that in this video. But this book was amazing. I gave it 5 stars. It took me pretty much the entire month of May to read this. And honestly, you guys, I didn't realize that there were going to be so many triggers in this book for me. There are triggers of domestic violence, emotional, mental, and physical abuse. Just triggers that really brought me back to a really dark place in my childhood that I thought that I had healed from, that I haven't completely healed from, because reading this book almost killed my soul. You know, every other chapter was so difficult to read. It put me in such a mental place of despair and depression and anguish, and I related to the main character so much. Her 15-year-old self was so close to 15-year-old me, and it was brutal for me to read this. And so it took me the whole month, and I finally finished it, and it was just beautiful and amazing. It was well worth the read despite all of my triggers being triggered, and I gave it 5 stars. I highly recommend this novel. I'm not going to go into a synopsis of it. I will link the Goodreads page down below, but this is definitely one of my favorite reads of 2015 because of how much I related to it, how much it impacted me, how beautifully and skillfully it was written, and just how it made me feel. I also read Lisa Kleypas's Sugar Daddy. Actually read this after The Sky is Everywhere. I'm going a little bit out of order. I apologize. If you watch my book 3 update video, which I will once again link right now, I go into a lot more about this. I basically give a mini review of this, so I'm not going to say anything else. But yeah, 4 stars. And then finally, on the last day, I could have continued on with my bookshelf place and read the last book that was on my bookshelf TBR, which was Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. But I was so wrecked after reading Purple Hibiscus, I did not want to read anything else emotional. So I picked up just randomly from my shelf, Graceling. And this is book 1 in the Graceling Companion series, which is made up of 3 books, all by Kristin Cashore. This is a young adult fantasy, and I read this in 2011 for the first time, so this was a reread, and I highly enjoyed this. This is one of my favorite books, and I haven't finished the series. I've only read through Fire. I still have to read Bitter Blue, which is the 3rd and final book. But this book really just reminded me how much I love Kristin Cashore as an author, and it just really reminded me how much I love this book. This was my first chance to reread it since I read it the first time, and I highly recommend this for lovers of fantasy and adventure. There is romance in here, but it's well done. This is one of the first young adult books that I read that had a sex scene that I thought was tastefully done and done in a way that was realistic and yet appropriate, if that makes sense. It made sense to the story, it fit in, it wasn't there for titillation, it moved the story forward, it just made sense. And this is also a really feminist novel as well. I don't know if anyone who's read this has realized this, but I think that Katsa is an amazing female protagonist. She's a strong feminist, and so is Poe, her love interest. He's a feminist as well, and it was so refreshing to read a male protagonist in young adult fiction that is a feminist and that sees his female counterpart as an equal and respects her choices and is okay with her being, you know, stronger than him and better at him in a lot of things, in a lot of ways. He was okay with it, and he saw her as a human being and not as a female or woman who's weaker and lesser than him in some way. I really loved that. It was refreshing, and they are definitely my ultimate OTP. I ship them so hard. I love this book. I highly recommend it. And that is it. That is my Ribsat wrap up. All in all, I read 5 books. Ooh, all right here. Oh my gosh, I can't hold these up. I read 5 novels during Ribsat, which I consider that to be a success. It's basically a book a day for 5 days because I started late. I started pretty much on day 2. So yeah, this is it. I can't even hold them all. These are all the books that, oh my gosh. These are all the books that I read, and I'm very proud of myself. I feel very accomplished, and yeah, that's it. So let me know what books you read during Ribsat, if you participated, and how you feel and all that jazz in the comments, or whatever else you want to talk to me about in the comments. I'll be happy to hear it. I'm gonna put this down now. That's it for my wrap up, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye! Bye, guys. And these are the type of insecurities and type of female protagonist characteristics that I find in a lot of chick lit and women's fiction. Are these women who are bright, who are loved, and come from, you know, a stable background, so to speak. They have a great job, they have friends, you know, they have things going for them. They're funny, they're charming, and yet they choose to surround themselves with either someone or someones who make them feel that something about them is lacking and that they're not enough. And this feeds on their inner insecurities that they already have, whether it's about their appearance or whether it's about their choices in life when it comes to love or career, whether it's about their financial status. They always have some type of insecurity that these people that they've chosen to surround themselves with only then magnify and almost make worse. And it's hard to read books like this because on one hand, you really are sympathizing with the character and you're rooting for the character and you want the character to evolve in a way and learn and grow and just kind of